Good evening, welcome, and thanks so much for joining us tonight. We are here from rainy Deptford, looking to put a little bit of sunshine into your evenings, and it's a real pleasure to be hosting this event on the Penned in the Margins Twitter account. And the purpose of today, as it may be inevitably obvious from the poet sat next to me, is to celebrate the publication day of the actual. Congratulations, Inua.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
What an exciting day, and what an exciting time to be joining some quite illustrious company, the other amazing poets and writers, part of the Penned in the Margins family.
I know it's quite an eclectic mix of minds. It's kind of cool, yeah.
Writers that take risks, right, and audiences that they're up for taking risks as well. So it's really exciting to be joining that gang, and and this is my first plug of a couple, which is that if you're thinking about buying a copy of the actual, and if you're not thinking about that now, you will be in about 40 minutes, probably sooner, then the best place to do that is www.pennedinthemargins.co.uk, and that will mean that the lovely folk at Penned in the Margins, who've worked incredibly hard to bring this magnificent book into light and into life, will make sure that it goes and looks after them rather than a conglomerate whose name you don't know or I. So, welcome, Inua. I think what we'll do is we'll start with hearing you read some of your poetry.
Oh, just like that?
Just like that, just straight off the bat.
Yeah.
And then we'll chat for a little bit.
Cool.
And then we'll probably round it out with Inua reading a final poem at around 8:45. So we're expecting to be with you for around 40 minutes this evening. And it's a real pleasure to be in your company, your living rooms, from Inua's here in Deptford.
From Inua's living room to yours.
I mean, he's a man that needs no introduction, but just in case you've stumbled across this website, this live stream, and you're not quite sure how you ended up, let me tell you a couple of things about Inua. So he's a playwright, poet and performer based here in London, and has got some incredibly illustrious performances and plays under his belt. Most recently, a rewriting of Chekhov's Three Sisters at the National Theatre, and I think one of the actors associated with that production is joining on Friday for the launch.
Yes, yeah, two of the actors actually.
Two of the actors, amazing. And it was also, because one book launch and a play aren't enough in and of themselves, and it was also starring in his own self-penned autobiographical show, An Evening with an Immigrant, which is at the Bridge Theatre at the moment, and apparently completely sold out. So that's just a brag. That one exists there just as a brag. And it's your fifth poetry collection, but first full one. Yeah,
the others have been little pamphlets, little experiments here and there. After Hours, which was my previous one, was half written by 18 other poets, because I rewrote and recreated some of their poems. But this is my first full collection, entirely penned by myself.
Wow, exciting, scary stuff. And fifth collection, but also this is a book launch of 5 nights as well, right? You've got a big week ahead of you. You've got the launch on Friday. You've got the film, Fuck Tupac, dropping tomorrow. The binaural essay. The
binaural
play.
Fuck Beethoven on Thursday. And before that, a long essay called, the binaural play called Fuck Batman, and then a long essay called Beethoven on Wednesday, which all of these goes live on my website. And Fuck Tupac also, I'll make the artwork, which was animated into the film, available in various formats for desktop, screen stops, mobile phones, and all that jazz. Yeah.
Well, there you go. I mean, one part of many, and I think an evening that hopefully we're all going to enjoy.
Hopefully.
And some brilliant content coming its way later this week. So Inua's the man with the Midas touch. He's been turning everything from stage productions to quite literally the covers of books to gold for the last, how long have you been at this game? Maybe 15?
2003, yes, coming up to 15. Oh my God, this is my age speaking. Yeah, for quite some time I've been working.
The 17th year we're into now. This book is relentlessly curious, it's humorous, it's angry, it's heartfelt, and I'm really looking forward to us getting some time to chat about it in a little more detail. There are some kind of heart-stopping turns of phrases in here. You talk about the creaking constellation of traffic, you talk about the golden nothing of a desert, and with that in mind, it'd be lovely to hear you read a few from the book.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to read maybe four or five, and then we see where we go. I want to start with the title poem, which is called Fuck Tupac, and is more an elegy for this man who died way too young than anything else. So this is it. Fuck Tupac. Fuck Tupac for dying early, for the fields of lavender and hawthorn in which I sat, overlooking Dublin city, though as dusk wrapped the sky, it could have been any creaking constellation of traffic and tower blocks from Compton to Clondalkin, blinking staccato madness into the unspooling night. Fuck you for forcing the criminal animal, gnashing its teeth in piss-streaked alleys, collarless priests cruising in rented hatchbacks, Protestants and Catholics like Bloods and Crips, brothers split along color lines, fueled by racist police who came to break our skin. Fuck you for ordering them to the rank and file of rhyme, for making sense of the Celtic anarchy in those urban psalms of your slim scripture, in your rich voice explaining, this is how it's always been. Darkness, light, thin paths between, with you leading, you reluctant Messiah, as all true Messiahs must be, leading to a fellowship of souls hunkered in headphones, suspended between word and hard matter. Fans, disciples, self-sanctified street saints, thrown stones of strange fruit, sour as we are, scattered across the tar-marked planet, haloed in snapbacks, hooded, hidden, hollering hard, hallelujahing, head bowed, nodding in pious agreement. How we would have followed you, homie, to hell and back. How you had me whole. First poem. The second is called Fuck Humanity. And this is about times where we just disappoint ourselves and let the team down, but it's also about a moment of hope, which was embodied by my niece Ellie. Kind of sneaks in towards the end of the poem, but it's a frustration of just how we get things wrong sometimes. Anyway, the poem is self-explanatory. Fuck humanity. Fuck humanity, I want to bellow like a card-carrying champion of the nihilist society. Fuck all the ways even our most earnest, faithful, folded over, humbled, deep down considered attempt at amending our venomous ills undoes itself. Think almond milk and California wildfires, nitrogen fertilizer and industrial food waste, factory emission limits and the trade in carbon offsets, free market and exploitation, voluntary work and white savior complex, vegan avocado diet and deforestation, phones to connect our lowly spirits and black bodies in coltan mines. Fuck every single attempt. Our best bet is to annihilate our vicious selves. I want to bellow as Ellie pushes her 3-year-old hand into the calloused cave of mine. Her fingers, frail as elderberry petals, flutter. She calls me down to the careful constellations blooming in the brown universe of her brimming eyes, and all I am folds over, humbled, deep down, reconsidering attempts at amending our venomous ills, even if it undoes me. Yeah. Next poem is called Fuck White Savior Complex. So a lot of the poems have phrases that reoccur. The titles of another poem is hidden in the one previous. And this is called Fuck White Savior Complex. Let me see, what page is this on? For those of you who already have a copy who are interested in following along, Fuck White Savior Complex is on page 34. This is it. And I met a lady who works for Waterstones in the Cheltenham Literature Festival, and her name is Amber. Oof. She's very lovely, so apologize, Amber, if you're watching this. Fuck White Savior Complex. Her name is Jane or Amber. She will have the best intentions. She will have the petal of this reason for a tongue. She will have been 5. The glow of the National Geographic will have bathed her face golden. She will have paused on the dark child's swollen belly, thin limbs, ribs, the flies. She will have slipped off her big sister's Louboutins, skipped the playroom, through her mother's walk-in wardrobe to the pool to ask if the child could attend supper. Her mother's laugh will shimmer her diamonds. She will explain, the world is the world. Some work hard, like your father, forging oil contracts. Some just don't. But we are still to help the poor in Africa. She will have wanted to ever since. Her utmost sincerity will cut you to silence. She will bloom anew. Next poem, which follows that, is called Fuck Tiffany. And if you've watched Men in Black countless of times than I have, then this scene will be quite sharp in your memory. And yeah, this is it. Fuck Tiffany. Men in Black, Part 1. Will Smith ducks into a shooting range. The targets are cardboard cutouts and zip wires, hurtling through strobe lights, sirens, smoke. Will calmly shoots once into the ghoulish darkness. When Zed, the invigilator, asks what the hell happened, pulling up Tiffany, a cardboard blonde with Will's bullet through her head, Will explains the first monster dangling off a streetlight is just working out. Another, snarling for the tissue in its hand, is actually sneezing, but that 8-year-old blonde amongst them, clutching a book on quantum physics, seemed the most out of place, the one suspicious, the one alien to that cardboard ghetto. Should my daughter ever walk the world's corners alone, I'd want her confidence to be as that white girl's, to believe trained men will clear monsters from her path. Should I have been taken for a monster at night, a bullet through me from the trained yet less discerning, should she then need warning of the world's true callers, will she tell my daughter, he should be the one. And the next poem I'll read is called Fuck Love. And this goes out to my family. This is on page, I don't know my book well enough yet. Let me see. Okay, I'll just...
It's just the next page.
Is the next page?
Yeah.
Okay, 97.
30.
37, all right.
I don't think the book's got 97
pages. No. The book has 84 pages of poetry, and that's the year that I was born. Completely unplanned. Yeah, Tom is a good guy. He looks after you. Tom Chivers is my publisher and editor, by the way. Fuck love. So Nigerians aren't the most emotional of people. We're loud, we're voluble, we're gregarious, we're active and overactive, but the subtleties of emotion is usually lost on us. And we don't use the word love so often, and this is this goes some way of explaining why that is, for me at least. It's from my family. Fuck love. Fuck love, I want to tell my twin sister. I want to tell my twin sister I love her, but what I really mean is her arm around my waist when we were half-formed halflings in mother's womb is the closest I've ever been to God. I want to tell my mother I love her, but mean I want to spoon the arthritis out of her swollen knuckles and kiss them back to nimble freedom. I want to tell my father I love him, but mean will I ever crown him with the comfort he deserves. I want to tell my nephews I love them, but mean some shadows seethe for black skin, and I want to shield them from its falling. I want to tell my people I love them, but mean I want them to have thrived on an uncarved continent. I want to tell my lover I love her, but mean her hug is palatial divinity, is my father's crowning comfort, my mother's dancing hands, my nephew's careless wandering, is uncharted territory, wild as it is pure. What is it to love when all your meanings are ineffable sufferings? What is it to mean more than you can? Who else carries half hugs in enflamed hands, empty of comforts, full of shadows and ancient aching acres? And the last poem I'm going to read was the most difficult one, which is called Fuck Batman. And all the poems were written on my phone, my iPhone, running through the city, traveling, meetings, underground train stations, etc. But I wrote this in lockdown. I was stationary, I was here, and it drove me mad. It was also an attempt to comment on the pandemic, which meant trying to write about something as it was actively happening. And poetry requires distance. So trying to put this together was really difficult. But this is called Fuck Batman. And early during the coronavirus, lots of scientists and epidemiologists were trying to figure out why. And bats and pangolins were cited as possible sources of the coronavirus. And I began thinking of the promise of Batman. Fuck Batman. The promise was, should one fall into a cave of bats, should one be engulfed by hundreds of beating wings, should one be beaten, scratched or bitten, one would emerge half human, half invincible enough to sharpen fear down to a tight-toothed weapon with which to gnaw the criminal urban underworld down to pulpy nothings protecting us all. The promise was, should an animal's essence seep into a child, knowing what damage loose power brews, he would accept himself as host, his body a fleshy petri dish to guide its mutation to goodness. Instead, the promise turned ravenous, leapt from host to host, country to country, blood to blood, its million teeth chewing through our simple lungs. We closed down our offices, it hung on our clothes. We fled from cities, it clung to our cars. We stayed in bed, it came for our dreams. A curdled crown, a rank coronation, a crude corroding of our inner sanctums, our public spaces, our minute planning, our mapped out futures, horoscopes and forecast, the dark parts of star charts, all emptied out to insidious stillness, the promise gorging on our numbed lives, our startled terror. And when the promise retreated, it left its fangs in the skies, its claws in our pockets, its foul breath huffed between us in shopping lines, its warning to return should we seize vigilance to claim more from the survived. Thank you.
Thank you. What an amazing way to start.
You're welcome.
Your own publication day. The first question that I want to ask you is, what was it like writing these poems in transit? This was a new kind of experiment for you in terms of pulling together a collection. I mean, is this just an incredibly efficient way of using time? Or what was it that about that time or those journeys that kind of changed the way that you thought about writing?
Well, the first poem I wrote was called Fuck Donald Trump, and I thought the title was a little bit nail on the head. So I called it Fuck Trump. Fuck 45, because it's the 45th president of America. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to find a diagonal way of approaching this monolith, this mega, super political, problematic star. And what I did was I gathered all the nicknames that I could find about him and constructed a simple narrative of trying to attack someone who I felt attacked by. But the poem sort of appends itself and becomes a critique on name calling. Mm-hmm. And when I realized that I could think quite quickly, I could grab disparate things in and not worry too much about punctuation, just to find a sort of a forward thrust through things. And it sort of became a writing principle to try and search through the various things that just kind of angered me over the course of the two years of writing it. And I never thought it would be a book of poems. I was just frustrated and expressing my frustration on my phone. And I think that's why the book is imbued with this energy, because that's how it came about. I wasn't thinking of poetry. I was thinking of catharsis, freedom, space.
And these kind of forward slashes almost like cuts, right, or kind of wounds, I guess, in the way that, I mean, it's a form of blank verse, right, the way that it's being written, but these kind of little nuggets or phrases that run throughout. And I think it's really interesting you mentioned naming as well, because so much of this book is about, you giving name to things that we don't. I mean, you mentioned love and your family and not telling them that you love them enough, but there's also an interesting poem in here called logophobia, isn't there?
Which is the fear of new names, of new terms, and it's one of the things that has baffled me, which is the death of nuance in political and personal discourse. What are we afraid to to dissect, really, and why can't we do that anymore? And I was definitely pointing towards that, and just naming things, but also trying to bring nuance and space for community and conversation into it. So I was asked in another interview, what do I want from the reader? And I think I want the reader to disagree with me, to take the poem and deconstruct it and think, okay, I agree with that. That bit's a bit shit. That's what I want. More nuance, more conversation.
A few of these poems end with this refrain that kind of comes throughout, am I wrong?
Yeah.
And there's no punctuation there. It's a challenge, right? You are, I mean, these poems read like they're dares. I mean, you are kind of thrusting the audience to either, or the reader to disagree, or to follow suit, and to challenge themselves on their opinion. I mean, that presumably played into the title, right? The actual, but we know that it's got this kind of other title, the actual fuck. I mean, how do you feel about that disconnect between the two?
I think, again, it just creates more space to disagree, to dissect, to and just to figure out where the poems hit you, where the lines hit you, what is true, what isn't, what is opinion, what is fact, what is fiction, and everything that kind of comes in between. There are phrases that existed which I just ran away with in some of the poems, and just to see where the forward thrust of imagination would lead me down. Yeah. And
I think it's kind of remiss for us not to talk about the fact that there are some fairly kind of seismic figures here who don't get named, right? I mean, your 3 poems about contemporary politicians are all unnamed. They're Fuck 45, Fuck 77, I think, and
Fuck 76, yeah.
And 76, referring to Trump, Theresa May, and Boris Johnson.
Boris Johnson, yeah.
I mean, you seem to be suggesting that this kind of idea of naming is a political act as well, right? And there's something there about kind of borders and territory. And
I definitely think so. And in parts of West African cosmology and mythology, names have power. When a child is born, the father and mother wait for the first full moon to carry the child into a clearing in the forest and whisper the child its name. And this is because there's this belief that names hold destinies, and the child should know its destiny before the rest of the world. And that is the power of naming. And as a playwright, I take naming my characters really, it's almost like a religious process for me, because it spells their future, their journey through. So that thinking, that specificity of philosophy ran through the book. And I wanted also, for those who aren't aware of the politics of these politicians, to just read up to find out some of their other policies, definitely of Theresa May and also of Boris Johnson. And with Boris Johnson itself, it is his words that I'm using in describing him, even though I don't name him explicitly in the poem.
There's quite another interesting binary in the book, which is about the kind of the monoliths, or these kind of heroes that you're tearing down, but you seem to reserve a special kind of hatred for the people that blindly follow it, right, as well. Reading this collection, it seemed that perhaps some of your frustration, I mean, particularly in poems like The Mandela Effect, it's looking at the way that people kind of blindly consume the information they're being given, or the idea of mass consumption, which comes into so many of your writings about the environment, that actually your biggest frustration is people swallowing what they're told. Is that something you wanted to?
Yeah, because, I don't know, hero worshiping isn't a thing that I really like. When people meet me, I think on some level I try to disappoint them, especially if they're fans of mine. I just try to bring everything right down. I'm really invested in the democratization of poetry, but also all our heroes, because all their shit stinks as well. And as much as Mandela is heralded, there's still a whole lot of people who disagree with his politics. And I just wanted to deconstruct that a little bit. I think about Christ, for instance. Christianity was named after him. He'd be appalled, if during his life he was told, we're going to do this thing after you. If the figure that we read about in the Bible is as humble as he is, that's the last thing he wanted. Yet we've built this mythology, this weapon that we use to demonize and to ostracize other faiths right across the world, and arguably the same thing has been done with the legacy of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. He's been weaponized, his teachings has become this tool. So hero worshiping is something that I go that I riff through the book, and I try to bring down to the very bare essentials, to skin, to bone, to the frailties, the mistakes that all humans intrinsically are. And I say the mistake because we kind of are. The process of birth, of fertilization, is a ruckus. It's chaotic. Hundreds of thousands of millions of other potential people die on the way. You're just lucky to have survived. And yeah, yes.
And I mean, you've got a poem called Fuck Dust, which is about how you try to kind of re-swallow the bits of your, I mean, it is perhaps the more kind of the most visceral of the poems, right? Where you're looking at the concept of dust, this kind of very, very tiny kind of microcosm. I mean, there seems to be a lot in here also about the sublime and the relationship between the minutiae and the sublime. You talk quite a lot in the book about constellations and the kind of the magnitude of things. I mean, how does the environment play into this collection for you?
This is something that keeps me up at night, thinking about climate change, as it does far more intelligent and connected people I am, including climate change scientists who have been freaking out for the last 15 years. So thinking about the environment and the hell we're creating for our future generations it plays through everything. For me, it takes a lot for me to decide to publish a book because I'm hyper conscious of my carbon footprint and what it means to write yet another book. So many books are published each year, so many books of poetry that I was like, sometimes I feel guilty that this book does exist because of the things, the trees that have been felled in its name, and a few poems here about climate change.
I think to allay your conscience that Pend is a climate offsetting publisher and they are climate neutral. Okay. So if that makes you feel any better
it does make it. I'm actually pained that I didn't know that. John's going to tell me off now.
Well, there you go. So this is a collection that actually does more. I mean, it's at least neutral, if not positive. So you should. So that guilt should go straight into the back of your mind.
Okay, good.
Your idea about progress, the serendipity that any of us get to live in the first place is fascinating. You also, I mean, this idea of progress comes up throughout the book. Tell me a little bit about the poem Tommy Robinson, because you do some interesting things there, don't you? Yeah.
I think one of the reasons why I called that poem Tommy Robinson, after the problematic and divisive figure of him, is because it's not his real name. Right. Tom Robinson is a moniker, something he created through which he communicates his right-wing and nationalist and nativist politics. And but also I didn't want to write about him, so I wrote about animals, insects that contribute more to humanity, to making the planet a safe space for us than he does. And that was the comparison, comparing Tommy Robinson to maggots. It was one way to approach this man without writing about him, to speak diagonally of the influence he carries on Earth. And it's one of the funnier and humorous poems in the book, I like to think, even though it has this very huge political echoes and sort of chambers in which it occupies and it operates. But it's just about these little insects. During lockdown, during the height of summer, I didn't empty my bin as often as I should have.
Right.
So once I opened it, and maggots popped out, and I thought, yeah, at least they're doing more work than Tom Robinson is.
There he is.
There he is, yeah.
Because, I mean, the comparison that you make, right, is that he's just one part of one kind of state of kind of human progression that is going to be transcended, that his evolution or his ideology is so easily going to be kind of usurped. And this is an idea that you come back to. Yeah,
the maggots do celestial work, right? They're ground at the bottom of the sort of ecological cycle, but they gain the power of flight. They become bigger, they become larger, and that sense of scale really drives a lot of the poems. You go from the minutiae to the epic.
And there's I think it's in Fuck Boys, where you talk about the kind of mother's potential for their children, or this idea that these boys don't quite become the potential that they have in them, or that there's an inevitability isn't there? You talk about them in their teens, in their 20s, in their 30s.
Yeah.
But it comes back to this idea of their mother's idea for themselves. Again, this idea of, I can't tell reading the book whether you're a big believer in progress or you've kind of...
I definitely am. I think there are roadblocks. There are roadblocks to progress. And that is what frustrates me, things that seem obvious.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, the conversations we've had during lockdown about decolonizing the English curriculum
Mm-hmm.
and teaching colonization for what it actually was, teaching the legacy of the entire slave trade, to teaching about the contributions Black and brown people have made to the United Kingdom, which is constantly just mistaught or just completely ignored. So there is potential for progress. The millions of people who signed this petition shows that there's a willingness for this to be taught in schools, but our leaders sort of flatly refuse to take on board that. So there is progress, and there's a willingness for progress, but there are roadblocks to that, and it's one of the things I think I railed against in the book. Yeah.
And at that point, it's probably worth us chatting about the fact that this book falls quite neatly into two halves.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about Fuck Empire and that series of poems?
Fuck Empire. I was approached by Manchester Literature Festival and Manchester Museum, and they had an item in their possession, ceremonial tusk, which had been looted from Nigeria by the British government and British troops. And somehow it made its way to Salford, Manchester. A bunch of things that were also looted. I think in total about 3,000 items is still in possession of the British Museum. They still have it. They have exhibitions about it. And Nigerians have been calling for the items to be returned to them. And the Museum of Manchester museums are aware of this. So they were willingly wanting to return this tusk, but it's against British law to return looted items. So they couldn't do so. So they approached me asking me, what do I think about this? Would I write something in a response? And I said, if you want me to write a poem, I'm not going to hold back. And they said, we want you to do whatever it is you want. So I began to write and to research about this items, where it came from, how it ended up here. And it's from the Edo, Benin City, the Benin Edo parts of Nigeria, which is where my father's father is from. So again, I found it directly wedded to my lineage, to Nigeria, to my Nigeria. So I tried to write about empire through that lens, beginning with the tusk, trying to figure out the soldiers, the power play, the politics that existed on the day, and how it ended up in Manchester and why it is still there. And it became a 7-part sequence, which stretches from China, from the Opium Wars, where the British waged war on the coast of China to sell opium to the people, right up onto the destruction of Benin City, which was the largest man-made structure ever. The construction took something like 500 years, and the British destroyed it over the span of a week. So the poem just goes into explaining that and what was stolen, and how just the violence played out in the communities that lived around Benin City at the time.
And again, that comes back to this idea of being able to see the magnitude in an object as kind of, well, I don't know how big the tusk was.
Yeah, it's pretty huge actually.
Okay.
And the tusk has inscriptions on it, little pictorial, I guess historical records of past kings and their conquest. So you zoom right into this huge thing, and there's fine art and detail and history woven into it. So exactly, there's the minute, the macro, and the micro all together.
And somewhere in the middle of all of that, between the huge, these kind of global concepts and the minutiae of dust or this tusk, you've also got some venom for weak handshakes and or limp handshakes and weak hugs.
Weak hugs, yeah. I'm a hugger. I'm a good hugger.
Famously the best hugs in poetry.
Famously the best hugs in poetry and in theatre. I think I'm coming for that throne as well. And it's because I don't know. I just like giving hugs, and when I get weak hugs back, it pisses me off because I know how much I give in a hug. And same thing with handshakes. I hate those limp. You know what I'm talking about, where you hold someone's hands and it feels as if you're holding cooked noodle, which is one of the images that and I just give of yourself. It's okay to be present completely with someone, and I rail against it. So in the midst of all the big topics the book sort of engages with. They're little personal things like that, which I care about. Yeah.
You describe them as like warm slugs.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Gross, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly
they're
right.
really gross, yeah. It's, just shake my hand properly. And I was just raised to do so. And I expect that when I meet someone, if I shake firmly, it should be reciprocated.
So again, there is that idea that we're coming back to of meeting someone at the door, right? Like, bestowing or challenging the same way that a collection or an idea. I mean, that comes again back to this idea of meeting someone halfway, right?
Yeah.
I mean, meeting someone halfway sounds kind of banal, but what I mean is kind of rising to greet someone in the same way or to...
Yeah, it's also one of my principles for editing. There's something Stephen King says, which is when you write, you should write with the door closed, but edit with the door open. And for me, it means that I imagine a complete stranger might come in from off the street, sit beside my desk, and I want them to be able to understand the poem that I have written, to understand what it negotiates. Therefore, I write with a lot of clarity. I try to meet them on level playing fields. So that meeting point is really fundamental to my practice as a writer, as a theatre maker or a poet.
Great,
Yeah.
thank you. One thing that I want to ask you about is when you've chatted about hero worship and how kind of hollow a concept you think it might be.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you have unwavering kind of belief or unwavering hope in?
I'm not sure about the future of the planet, but I'm sure about the future of people. I think whatever hellhole we're walking into, the next generation will sort it out. I don't want to task them with that job, but I really believe they are, because they will find the language to articulate their reality, and in doing so they'll find the tools with which to deconstruct it and to diminish it and to remove the harsher aspects of the lives that they're constructing, that we are constructing for them. At best, we should try to maybe help them articulate it and steer them, but we should be comfortable and trustworthy in how we retreat from that picture and just let them do the work. So I'm hopeful in that. I wish we could make their work easier, but I know that they'll figure out a way, because the human spirits will prevail somehow. I fundamentally believe so. And I see my nephews, I see how they play, I see how they think, I see how intelligent and clever they are, and I trust them. I just wish their lives and their world to be easier.
So that, so does that mean that your intention with this book is almost to create a bit of a roadmap, or is it there to kind of invoke kind of courage as well, and to bolster your nephews, your niece, whose kind of hand that you hold on to, and that makes you believe and hope more than anything else? I
think so. It also is a way to legitimate anger and frustration, to say everything you're feeling, we feel it too. We're trying to guide you in how to feel that and direct and channel that rage into something. And that is definitely where the whole book came from. It was rage, it's the relentlessness of things, and trying to figure out how to bring nuance to it. And I think that's one way in which the book operates, is to name things, to say, I see you, I feel the same way. And this is one way to think about it, to channel all of that. Yeah. Because
you famously said that you're not an angry person, right?
No, I'm not.
Find it very hard to get cross about things.
Yeah, it burns out really quickly. And this is one way in which the burnout found its voice. But I'm 35 years old, and I've only had one fight in my whole life, and it ended before it really became anything. So no, I'm very. It takes a lot to anger me. I just take myself out of the situation, or turn it into art. Yeah. So
this is a book that's about hope and about courage as much as it is about those frustrations, right?
Yeah. I'd hate for someone to pick up the book and just get angry, because that is where the poems began, but definitely isn't where the poem ends. It becomes something else. Even perhaps the most cantankerous poem is called Fuck Sympathy, but in it it's a retreation. It's the voice of the poem retreats and creates a safe space for itself, for its sorrows, for everything it's sort of tasked. It is tasked with, and so yeah, that's always the thing, to engage with the anger, but be creative with it and figure out another way. But anger is a very potent force, and it can create some incredible movements, like it is right now with the Black Lives Matter movement. So it's to harness it. Yeah.
And that comes back to your point about distance, right? That you mentioned right at the top of the conversation, that it was the thing that made Batman such a hard poem to write, was that you felt...
Because I was in it.
Yeah. Whereas the thing that's really remarkable about the sympathy poem is that you are able to kind of tear yourself away from that frustration, so that we look at it from a completely new angle, which is, I think, what all of these poems do.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to do. Sometimes I feel as if I haven't gone further enough exploring the anger, and you can't, because it's an impossible thing to do. Really, the anger comes at you in various ways. There's another killing that happened 2 days ago of a black man in America. There's a lot of unresolved deaths in custody right here. The continuum of anger and frustration goes on. At some point, you have to draw a line to figure out how to engage with the world and how to progress the conversation, even if the world isn't progressing the conversation for you. And that was some of the energies that went into writing Fuck Sympathy. And I wrote that poem maybe 1.5 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it feels so current. I sent it to a friend who thought I'd written it immediately after the murder of George Floyd, but it was an old poem, and the cycle of violence continues. The question is, how do you engage with it? How do you pull back? How do you steer it? And the women and those who started the Black Lives Matter movement were black women. They were artists and activists in America, and they were able to articulate that frustration, that fear, and turn it into something else.
Does that, when you think about the fact that you wrote this poem, Fuck Sympathy, 1.5 years ago, and yet it felt like it had been created for that chilling moment in June, does that give you, how does that make you feel, this idea that actually that progress isn't...
It hasn't happened just yet, I definitely know that, but it is happening. The movement has changed a lot of things. Conversations are happening now in organizations and companies that would have been unheard of last year. I had a 90-minute dinner via Zoom with Lloyd's Bank members, and this is what we discussed: colonization, the legacy of the Black Lives Matter movement, mobility, structural change, Lloyd's involvement in transatlantic slave trade, how members of the British society were still paying off the debts which the government paid off the slave traders back then. Some of the taxes I've paid has gone to the pockets of slavers. We discussed all of this via Zoom. 1 year ago, that would not have happened, and we explicitly discussed the Black Lives Matter movement. So there is progress. It doesn't happen as quickly as I'd like it to. Definitely, there's some spheres politically, socially, economically, financially that are shutting down those conversations. But there is movement. There are conversations happening.
Well, and it's books like this that I think that encourage us to fall back on the comfort of these words in here when we are struggling for the right thing to do or the right thing to say.
I hope so.
So thank you. And I hope, as I see that we're running increasingly out of time, if you'd close this evening out for us by reading a couple more poems. I should say once again that this remarkable volume of poems, The Actual, is available at all good booksellers, but especially at the Penned in the Margins website. And hey, you've got an extra reason to support them now that you know they are carbon neutral.
Yes, please do. The carbon neutral.
So if you're going to, and I hope that you will, consider picking up a copy of this dizzying and very empowering and inspiring book, that you'll buy it through them. And Inua, over to you for the final words.
Thank you. I'll read maybe one more poem. I'll read the very last one, which is called "Fuck You," and it's a metaphysical love poem, really. And this happened next door in my bedroom sometime last year. Fuck you, my love. I promise, should you ever say you're not a body that has a soul, but a soul that has a body, and that body is within the soul, I'd respond, fuck you, and fuck out of here with that new age shit. But I haven't, because early this week, crawling between the crisp sheets for an afternoon nap, I fell back, expecting the goose feather pillow to gather my loose neck, but instead kept falling as if the feathers had parted into the smoothest clouds, then just forming snow, then hard rain, then red mist, then fire, raging fire, then molten stone. O boiling earth, O liquid metal, O solid thunder, O fire, O fury, through which I kept tumbling, then all went silent, as if I'd falling off the cliff edge of quiet into space, all blue, all black, all blinking its many-mooned and millioned ministries, all of them ministering to me, and amongst them was I, drifting at the slowest speed possible, yet far above, out, and wide as the planet's girth, all expanding, all still, all me, still there in that bed, moon-wrecked between its sheets, gasping and grasping at it. For all the fleshy sparkle of the body's glow, for all its muscular mystery, how could it contain all I had seen, all I had been, unless its reach is beyond itself, further than its bones allow, unless the soul is beyond its body, its edges blurring to brilliant madness. Thank you.